to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is episode 30 of the Many Statements of Karen Read. And this is going to be a voiceover only. We're covering the Canton Cover-Up, the Commonwealth versus Karen Read. We've included Turtle Boy in the thumbnail because his case is very much intertwined with this case. And I've done a lot of coverage on him and the Canton 9. If you're not familiar, please go back and look at my videos 1 through 29. There are a lot of moving parts to this case. As you might be noticing if you have been watching the trial, there are many twists and turns, and it's kind of a wild ride, especially if you have not yet learned about this case or adopted any kind of feelings one way or another, because it really is I don't know why it's a polarizing case, because the evidence clearly suggests that Karen Read is innocent, but I digress. I don't know why it's so highly debated. I think it's like the Alberts versus everybody else in the town, everybody in the town is like with the Albert, so it's like she's got the whole town of Canton and the surrounding areas against her, it seems. But this case, we are, as you can see, it's a deep dive. We've been doing this deep dive for many months now, and as the case progresses, we're going to continue our episodes. So this episode is going to be about the many statements that Karen Read is said to have made while at the scene when they found John, and they were still trying to do resuscitation and all sorts of things. Karen Read was the only one trying to do CPR when the first responders did actually respond. You can see on the screen, this is Karen Read, obviously. We've got Stephen Saraf, we've got Timothy Nuttall, we've got Anthony Flamati, and we have Catherine McClaflin, among others we're going to hear from. So let's get into it. Let's dive in. Please hit the like button and let YouTube know that you like hearing videos about this case or receiving content about this case. So I've put together a presentation for you, and we're going to go through each one of the first responders' answers or statements that they are attributing to Karen Read. So the things that they are saying came directly out of Karen Read's mouths, things that they are quoting, she said. And that's what this episode's about. We're going to break it down. So, Officer Stephen Saraf from the Canton PD, you can see his picture there. He was the first responder to testify. He was on the first day, actually. So the first person to testify was Paul O'Keefe, the brother of John O'Keefe. And then next was Erin O'Keefe, Paul's wife. So the first witness's wife. So that was John's sister-in-law that testified, and then following her was Officer Saraf. And we're going to go through the first few days of testimony and what all of these different first responders have said that Karen said. So first up, Officer Saraf, first responder on the scene, which is why he was called first. He was the first one to arrive. He was about to begin life-saving measures, but then shortly thereafter, after getting a little bit of information and assessing the scene, he was going to get his, what is it called? The AED, the defibrillator thing that he's got, his portable defib in his trunk or whatever, in his car that they carry around for these types of incidences. Incidents. I made up a word. All right. So, he says in testimony in this trial, he said that Karen said, "This is all my fault. This is all my fault. I did this." Another thing that he attributes to her is saying, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" and repeatedly saying that over and over again. So that is what he said on the stand in this trial. Statements that he wrote in his report, though, are a little different. So let's see what those say. Karen Reed kept screaming, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She was severely distraught and wasn't able to tell me what happened. So nothing about, "This is my fault, I did this," which some could make it appear like it is her fault. Like she's taking blame for his accidents, when in reality it could be like, "Oh my God, this is my fault. I didn't pick him up," or I had a bad feeling and I shouldn't have dropped him off here," or whatever. Like a lot of people in panic mode think it's my fault. Everybody does that. So even if she did say this, which I'm not convinced that she did, but even if she did say, "This is all my fault," I don't think it's the smoking gun that the Commonwealth thinks it is, because I could easily see myself saying, "Oh my God, this is my fault. I shouldn't have left him here. I should have checked up on him," or whatever. So I don't think it's a smoking gun. Regardless, he didn't say it in his report, his written report that he wrote about this scene. And you're supposed to, as an officer, write all the stuff down, write as many details as you can. So if she didn't say that, or if she did say that, then why didn't he write it down is the problem. And then let's take it a little farther. So he, after doing all this on the scene, or talking about the scene in his report and in testimony, we know now that he also made a statement to Michael Proctor. So Michael Proctor, lead investigator, had every right to go and interview all the first responders, which is great and good that he did, but it's not good that he twisted and turned words around and things of that nature. So here is the statement to Proctor. This is several days later. I'm not sure the date, but I know a lot of people weren't interviewed until much later. So statements that he said, Karen said, and this is what he told Michael Proctor. He could hear Karen continually state, "Is he dead?" as the paramedics treated the victim. Officer Saraf then seated Karen inside her friend's vehicle. So that is basically the extent of what Trooper Proctor, the lead investigator, says in his report regarding what Officer Saraf said, Karen said at the scene. So there is nothing about, "This is all my fault. This is all my fault. I did this." So do you see how over time statements can easily progress and change? So a little bit later, in April of 2022, he had to testify at the grand jury. I'm sure he was subpoenaed. Many people were subpoenaed to go and testify at this grand jury, which led people to believe that, the first grand jury was to indict Karen. And then there's more grand jury stuff, especially with like Turtle Boy and other whatnots. But anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you. So this grand jury was basically put in place. It's a secret jury system that basically only prosecutors get to be a part of and show evidence. So nothing from the defense. The defense cannot defend themselves. And it's very often that in grand jury proceedings, exculpatory information is not given when it absolutely is supposed to be. But could you see a prosecutor going forth and saying, "Well, this hurts my case, but here you go. Let me give you all this information"? Not usually. They like to hide those things, and when they do, it's against their rules of, whatever professional conduct for having this. Anyways, let's move on. I can get into rabbit holes and talk all day long. So grand juries are quiet, or not quiet, but secret proceedings that the defense cannot be a part of. Exculpatory evidence is often overlooked or not presented in these grand juries. There's no judge, I believe. If anybody can correct me or confirm that in the comments, I believe there's no judge. So it's basically a prosecutor putting forth all the information in their case that they think is going to convict this person. So obviously it's a little unfair and biased to begin with. But the purpose of the grand jury is to determine, is there enough probable cause to believe that this person is guilty of this crime, which I don't know what they presented, because so far we've been through 7-8 days now at this point of testimony, and nobody really has given us any kind of information or evidence that Karen did anything wrong. But moving on. All right, so this grand jury statement, he said to the grand jury, because the prosecutor can ask questions of this person and, that's their testimony. So he says, this is my fault. I don't know. She said, I can't believe this happened. She kept asking if he was going to die, if he's dead. And, I just basically said, we're doing the best we could. He said a lot of you-knows. And I think that's him maybe struggling with words, because maybe he had to tweak it, because that's not what he told Proctor. He did not say, this is my fault. If you look back to Proctor's statement, he could hear Karen Reed continually state, is he dead, as the paramedics treated the victim. That's all it says about what Karen said, is he dead, repeatedly. And then here, now it's turned into, this is my fault, after he's talked to Proctor. Do you see? Like, everybody changes their statements after they talk to Proctor, but we'll get there. But what we can actually hear, we have Stephen Saraf's body or dash cam footage, and on that footage in court, Alan Jackson, it was very, very hard to hear, but I could hear the tail end of the phrase that he told us could be played on that recording. It's really hard to hear a recording that's being played in a room that's got its own acoustics and all that. So it's difficult for us, the outside public, to hear if we're not in that room. It's a lot harder, but I did hear the tail end of it. So Andrew Jackson, right? No, Alan Jackson. I can never remember. It's either one of our founding fathers or, the defense attorney in this case. He stated that he could hear, my boyfriend, I left him and he never came home. So that's what he told us was the phrase in the dash cam. I wish I could play it for you, but my computer is just not cooperating right now. So I'm in the works of getting a new one so that I could do better streams and have better streaming capabilities, because my computer just can't handle things right now. It's a little done. All right, so as you can see, there are many, many different versions. This is my fault. This is my fault. I did this. Is he dead? Is he dead? That's continuous, like that he's stated all throughout. So that I believe. The whole "this is my fault" that came in later at the grand jury. So I think maybe he was pressured to say that, perhaps, in the grand jury, or to make it seem more like it was her fault than just asking, is he dead? But I don't know. It could also be small town gossip, and they've been talking about this case for months and months and months, and you talk about it enough and you start adopting other people's memories and things. So it's a possibility that happened too. So let's move on to Officer Stephen Mullaney. He's with Canton PD. He was the next witness to testify, and he attributed the words to Karen Reed, "Is that my boyfriend? Is he dead?" That's what he said in testimony. So I think he phrased it wrong, because in his, well, not, I don't know. I'm just saying, let's take a look at what he says in his report. This was written, very shortly after the incident. While talking to McCabe, that's Jen McCabe, Reed was hysterical and repeatedly screamed, "Is he dead?" and "That's my boyfriend." So instead of "Is that my boyfriend?" which is a question mark, he says, that he says it in a questioning way in his testimony. But in his report, he stated, "That's my boyfriend." So even like those little things, I mean, it's pretty similar, but at the same time, it's, over time, your testimony changes. And it just proves how it can change very slightly sometimes. And I'm not going to even fault the guy for it because, it's so similar, but I'm just saying, like, your memory can change a little bit over time. Or you can even phrase it in a bad way. Like, you didn't mean to phrase it that way. You meant to phrase it as a question, but it just came out that way. Like it could have just been a slip of the tongue or something on the stand. So let's move on now to Timothy Nuttall. So now the rest are all EMTs with the Canton Fire Department. So we had 2 officers of Canton PD arrive, and now we've got, he was actually, I believe, one of the first ones to work on John, this Timothy Nuttall guy. And his statement here, he says, what Karen said was, when he asked what had happened, she said, "I hit him, and just kept repeating that. So that's what he testified to in this trial. His statement to Proctor, though, which was on February 8th, he said that he heard Karen say, "I hit him," to another female on the scene, and another female told Karen to be quiet. In his grand jury testimony, he said, while he knelt down, he asked Karen, "Do you know him?" And she answered him with, "I hit him, which doesn't make any sense. Why would you answer that to, "Do you know him?" But that's what he says. So it's slightly changed. Again, he asked her and she stated to him in this trial, he says that she told him directly. He told Proctor that she told another friend, and the friend told her to be quiet. In the grand jury, again, it's him. When he knelt down, he asks, "Do you know him?" and not what happened. He doesn't ask what happened. He asks, "Do you know him?" And then she asks, "I hit him. So 3 very different versions. Now we have Anthony Flamati. I think he was more like the lead fire EMT guy on the scene, because I believe it was him who made the report. Yes, he actually wrote a report. So during testimony, all of the EMTs were questioned about whether they wrote a report or not, and many of them did not, because apparently it's like the lead guy writes the report, not 4 reports, because they dispatch like 4 people in one truck. So I think that's just kind of how it went. I'm not sure, but that was kind of my knowledge of what was going on, because not everybody wrote it in a report. So he says that Karen said, "I hit him also." He says when he asked, "Do you have any information who this is? Who are they?" Karen responded with, "I hit him. Oh my God, I hit him." And she repeated the same thing over and over again with any follow-up questions. According to Anthony Flamati in this trial, he says this. But in the report, he said he did not report that she said, "I hit him. Oh God, I hit him." He never made that quote anywhere within his write-up. So the only person writing a report for the incident, and he was actually the lead guy supposed to be writing the reports, and he has not included anything about some kind of semi-confession, is what the Commonwealth wants to call it, I guess, but it's not necessarily a confession. Or is it even proven that she said it? So he didn't write it in his report. But then when he was interviewed on February 8th, so almost, 2 weeks later, or a week and some change later, Trooper Buchanan is the one that interviews him. And according to Trooper Buchanan's report, it says, quote, Katie spoke, Katie McClaflin, the other EMT, and we'll get to her in a little bit. She's a liar, but we'll get to that. All right, so the statement to Trooper Buchanan was, quote, Katie spoke with Karen Reed collecting medical history for the victim and was also told by Karen that the last time she saw the victim was 1 a.m. This is when Anthony heard Karen say, I hit him, I hit him. Keep that in mind. Next, with the grand jury, he said that as the lead paramedic, he was specifically trying to get as much information from Karen as possible and that he possibly could concerning the victim and how that victim ended up there. That was all he said in his grand jury testimony. Oh no, sorry, this continues on. He asked, how do you know him? How'd he get here? What happened? Any information you can give me about this purpose? So that's about this purpose. About this person? Maybe I spelled it wrong. I don't know. And then he admits, so those were questions that he asked, and again, she just kept responding with the I hit him, I hit him. He admits that his focus was primarily on treatment for the patient, but he does remember that she responded with I hit him, I hit him. He then asked Karen, did you hit him in the face? Did you kick him? Did you hit him with your hand? He tasked Katie McClaflin to go get more information. So he says that he asked these things, and she just kept saying, I hit him, whenever she was asked any follow-up questions. So then he told Katie McClaflin, the other EMT, to go get information. So that's what he said in the grand jury testimony. However, whoops, I spelled some. At no time does Anthony Filmati or Karen Reed have any exchange of words. That's a typo, sorry. So in the dash cam footage that is played in court, which I would have loved to play for you, but I can't because my computer's just, it's on the fritz. Like I said, I'm getting a new one, so it should be much better forthcoming. But anyways, so the dash cam is played in court, and I can't remember who was it, Jackson or Yannetti, who was asking the questions. No, I don't remember. It might have been Yannetti. And they played this whole scene of when the paramedics arrive to when they take off, and they're off no more. You can no longer see them on the dash cam. At no point in time do you ever see him talking to Karen. The only people you see talking, well, Karen's mostly running around and looking frantic and panicked and not really talking to anybody. But the most you see is maybe she talks to like a Jen McCabe or something. So his recollection to the grand jury of how he asked all these questions when actually it was pointed out that he was likely the one doing CPR, although he wouldn't admit that that's what he was doing. I don't know. It was clear that he was attending to the patient the entire time and not focused on Karen at all. So how did he even get to ask any of these questions? Because, folks, he never had a chance to talk to Karen on one-on-one. There was never a moment in the dash cam footage. So lead firefighter, EMT, paramedic from the Canton Fire Department lied about something, because he obviously lied, because he never had any exchange of words with her on video. Moving on. Matthew Kelly of the Canton Fire Department, EMT. This guy was a gem. He said in his statements that he attributed to Karen Reed in the testimony of this trial, he said, he's dead, he's effing dead. Repeatedly, over and over and over again. That's what she He says, Karen said. His statement to Proctor, he's dead, he's effing dead, repeatedly. That was February 9th. Grand jury testimony, April 2002. He's dead, he's effing dead, repeatedly. He is the only first responder who has not changed his narrative of what Karen said that day. He's the only one. Only one. So this guy, he should be the next captain because he's truthful in his words. All right, so Francis Walsh is the next guy, and they didn't really get into a whole lot with him. I don't think that he had much of an exchange with Karen Read, but he said that he overheard Karen say, "Is he alive?" Which is basically, "Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead?" repeatedly over and over again. So, what did Karen really say? All right, statements from Katie McClaflin, Canton Fire Department EMT. She was totally impeached on the stand and totally called out the next day for perjuring herself on the stand because she lied about the fact that she is besties or one of the besties of the homeowner's daughter, none other than Caitlin Albert. But she denied it, and then more and more pictures came forth of the two of them together. So there's that. She totally denied her friendship with Caitlin Albert, who was the daughter of the homeowner at the time of the scene. So she would probably know that that was her friend's house when she pulled up. Just saying. So here is what she attributes Karen Read to saying. After she asked just one more question, this part was totally staged, and I wish that I could show you the video because the way that Katie McClaflin said it, and I have on another stream, I did her full testimony, and we went over it in full. But she said, she kept saying, she was assessing the situation. She was asking Karen, what had happened and blah, blah, blah. And then just after one more question I asked her, she said, "I hit him," repeatedly. So it totally sounded fake and phony, and she's a phony baloney. All right. So also said in this testimony, I quoted her word for word because it's just crazy. Listen to this. All right, so at one point, and I continued to I asked one more question. So at that point, I asked her if there had been any significant trauma that happened before this. She said, "I hit him." She repeated it. There was a woman standing across from her. She knows who Jen McCabe is, who I believe at this point said, "You're hysterical. You need to calm down. You're hysterical." So even if Karen was screaming, "I hit him, I hit him," every single one of these people said she was like hysterical or panicked or whatever. So they all paint her as like the crazy person screaming and yelling and whatever. And so what? It was a chaotic situation and her boyfriend's laying on the ground. She doesn't even know if he's going to live or die. I say she has a right to be hysterical. But anyways, continuing on with this quote, she says, she repeated, "I hit him," and there was a police officer who was in that vicinity, kind of, with us, who replied, "You what?" She repeated it one more time, and that officer then signaled to somebody to get Goody down here, which I'm assuming to be the sergeant. And she knows the sergeant. She knows fire and police hang out in packs. I mean, you know who one another is. The firefighters want to be part of the Boys in Blue Club, and they get all buddy-buddy with the cops. And also the fact that I have that quote I have Goody in quote because that's not how you say his name. His name is Goode, Good, Sergeant Good. But I guess Goody is a nickname that they must call him. So somebody said, according to her, "Go get Goody." And she would know who that is. So she's acting like, which I was assuming would be the sergeant. I don't know. I'm a pure virgin and I wear my cross to trial and I'm perfect and pure in every way and you should listen to me. All right, so she told Proctor on January 30th, remember, she's the first one that gets interviewed, I believe, by Proctor, at least, EMT wise or first responder wise, because the incident happened on the 29th and most people weren't interviewed for like another week or 2 weeks or way longer. She told Proctor, Karen then turned to her friend and stated, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So you see how her testimony changed from, she asked her the one more question and she repeated the I hit him part. And then she had an interaction with a woman that was there saying she was hysterical. And then a police officer overhears it, which is totally different than Karen turned to her friend and stated, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Very, very, very different testimony. All right, so she was also, and as we found out, and this is another reason why I'm so mad at my computer, because I wanted to show you the brilliant lawyering by Jackson and Yannetti, because they have to like piece by piece get to the answers, but they always get their answer that they want from these witnesses. And this was another piece of the puzzle. So he, I think it was Jackson who interviewed her. He asked, did Kevin Albert set up the interview between you and Proctor? And she had to admit that yes. But she didn't, she says she doesn't know Kevin Albert. She doesn't know any of the Alberts. She doesn't know any of that. But it came out that Kevin Albert, the brother of Brian Albert, the homeowner of where John O'Keefe's body was found unconscious one morning in 2022, a snowy January morning. Yeah. Kevin Albert is the brother of that guy who owns that house. And he's a Canton cop too, Kevin Albert. Canton cop. So Canton cop, Kevin Albert, family member, set up an interview for Katie McClaflin to speak with Proctor, who we all know now is also a bestie of the Alberts. So you're either in with the Albert crowd or you're not, apparently, in Canton. The next EMT we're going to talk about is Lieutenant Greg Woodbury. He said that Karen repeated over and over again, is he dead? Is he dead? And that's what he said in testimony. He didn't change it. There was nothing to impeach. So that was all they said about him. All right, so next was Daniel Whitley, Canton Fire Department and EMT, and he's one that, so okay, he actually had to come back because Karen Reed was section 12, which means that somebody called in, and if we found out through the trial that it was her father who called in and saying that he was worried for Karen's safety because he was afraid that she was making some kind of statements about self-deletion. And because of that, they had to section 12 her, which means the police, law enforcement has to come. They take the individual and bring them to the hospital. That's their duty. That's their job. The hospital then does the intake, finds out, all the lab work and determines whatever, and determines if the person is a risk to themselves or not. She was let go from the hospital, almost immediately after but she didn't want to be there. She didn't want to cooperate. She was resistant, which I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to be there either. I wouldn't want to give my urine in a cup because a cop brought me to the hospital. No, thank you. And because I'm worrying about my boyfriend at this time. So it was all a real big mess that morning. And this Daniel Whitley was one of the individuals who had to come back and pick Karen up. So Karen and Carrie Roberts left the scene after they were told by law enforcement that they were okay to leave. Then the call comes in about the Section 12, and then Carrie Roberts is called to turn around and come back to the scene, which is then where Daniel Whitley and another EMT pick her up. So that's how he fits in. Daniel Whitley says that Karen said, if my husband dies, I don't want to live anymore. And then he also says that she kept asking if John was alive or dead. Which, yeah, like, tell me what is the status of my boyfriend's life? She asked if someone could be alive in the snow for many hours. Oh, there it is. There's the how we're going to get that how long to die in cold search on Jen McCabe's phone. This guy, seriously, I think he was a plant, because a lot of his things totally veer off from what other people were saying. I think, his not a plant, but I think that he's been gotten to, if that makes more sense. Somebody's been speaking in his ear, because his statements are totally off from what the others say. So if my husband dies, I don't want to live anymore. Kept asking if John was alive or dead. She asked if someone could be alive in the snow for many hours. That's the whole, how long does it take to die in cold? That's the Jen McCabe search. Like I said, they're trying to cover that up. She kept crying, I don't care, or I can't care for these kids. They're not my kids, and they're not his kids. And then finally he says that she said anyone who knows Carrie Roberts wouldn't call her a good, strong support system, because Daniel Whitley said, which was talking about how difficult it was for, dealing with raising the kids by herself. He mentioned that, well, it looks like you have a strong support system because a lot of people showed up to help you look for him. Little does he know that those aren't even her friends. They were John's friends, maybe, but I don't know what friends in your life or help cover up your unaliving. I don't know if I would call that a friend anymore, but so she said to Carrie Roberts, yeah. Oh, she said some well, he called it a snarky comment, because she said that. Because he's like, well, do you know Carrie Roberts? And he's like, yeah. She's like, well, anyone who knows Carrie Roberts wouldn't say that about her. Something like that is what he says she supposedly said. When she's in the back of an ambulance worrying about her boyfriend's life and what her life is about to look like if he's gone. And you want us to think she's saying some petty BS about Carrie Roberts in the ride? I don't think so. Or even if she did, like, so what? I forgive her for slipping up and saying that. Because I don't believe that any of them are good people. The McAlberts. None of them. All right. Section 12. This is, like I said, he had a Section 12 first. So here's his quote. So I quote, these are quotes coming straight from Daniel Whitley's mouth in testimony. Regarding the Section 12, he says, we were kind of seemingly more in the lines of normal grieving process after something happens to a loved one, whether they are going to die or not. We kind of didn't feel like it kind of led to the level of Section 12 to have her transported to the hospital. Kind of. And then he tells Officer Saraf, listen to this. He tells Officer Saraf, if we want her to be at the hospital, get a full, we're going to need more than just, if my husband dies, I'm going to die. Because that seems like normal grieving things to say. So does that mean that they made up more stuff? Here it says, if my husband dies, I'm going to die. And then that's different than if my husband dies, I don't want to live anymore. Also different, I mean, there's so many little differences in their testimony that you're like, what? All right, finally, is he the last one? I think so. Jason Becker, Canton Fire Department EMT. These are the statements that he attributes to Karen Reed when he's also one of the Section 12 guys. So the other guys before were for John. These two were for Karen. So statements attributed to Karen. He says that she told him that she was doing CPR on her husband. Again, with the husband. So maybe the dad referred to him as the husband? I don't know. But this guy also referred to John as husband, as if Karen was calling him her husband. And this guy does it too, which I find odd. It changed from boyfriend to husband. All right, so, and she was screaming boyfriend to everybody else. They have, documented, is that my boyfriend? Is he dead? Other people have said that that's what she said. So we know she refers to him as boyfriend, so I don't know why it's all of a sudden husband. I wish I knew. It's intriguing. It's just one of the other many things that doesn't make sense in this case. All right, she kept asking, is he dead or could he be dead? Again, that's just along the lines of, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Repeatedly over and over again. He says that she kept talking about O'Keefe's children and worried that she wouldn't be able to take care of them on her own. That's basically what the other guy said, but this guy said it a lot nicer. He said that she said they had gotten into an argument and upset that was their last conversation. And that I don't recall ever being part of any kind of document or anything that I'm aware of. And he's the first guy to report that they got into an argument and was upset that was their last conversation, because we don't really hear that with anybody else. So that's an interesting one. I wonder if that was also put in their ears by other people. I don't know, because all the fire department people, it was admitted that they talk about this frequently at the firehouse. Moving on, he says that she said they had got... Oh, sorry, I read that one. Also, repetitive questions. Could he be dead? Could he be dead? Over and over again. And he says that she denied having taken any drugs or alcohol. Which also, may I remind you, 6 a.m, so the night before, you're not thinking about the few drinks that you had the night before, because you probably feel pretty effing sobered up by now, because you just found your husband or boyfriend unconscious in the snow with blood and vomit all over him, and his face looks like it was beaten to a bloody pulp. You probably aren't thinking about the couple drinks you had the night before, because it's not relevant to the morning of her been frantic and driving around for the last hour plus looking for her boyfriend, who also, if she did take his life, why would she have done that? That doesn't make any sense. Why would she go off looking for him at 5 a.m. and then calling everybody, getting a search party together at 5 a.m? Why'd she do that if she took his life? Especially purposefully, which is now what the Commonwealth wants us to believe, that it was a personal, intentional attack against him out of anger or whatever. But I don't know, because they really haven't established their timeline or their narrative all that well. But that's what I thought they thought. All right, so the statement to Proctor now. This guy says to Proctor that Karen told him she did consume alcohol the night before. So, which is it? He denies that she talks about taking drugs or alcohol, and that was in his testimony. That was in this trial. He said that. But in Proctor's statement, he said that she did admit to drinking alcohol the night before. Also, Karen Reed didn't specify in what manner they had argued, whether it was via in-person, text, voicemail. So he doesn't really know the timeline or time frame of when they were talking. Karen admitted, I believe, or it could be rumor, but I believe that she admitted that they were arguing about things that morning because of what she served the niece for breakfast, who I believe now we can say her name now because it's out public knowledge. Kaylee and Patrick are the niece and nephew of John O'Keefe, who it is said now that the mother has custody of the kids. I did not know this. I learned on attorney Melanie Little's channel the other night that John O'Keefe and his mother, Peggy O'Keefe, had a bitter and drawn out custody battle over those kids. Ultimately, John won, and he won the battle, and he got to keep the kids in his custody for, I believe it was 8 years until his death. So, I mean, that was a win for him, but it makes you wonder now. And there was a statement by one of the more recent witnesses that Karen had made a statement about how she was upset that John's family didn't do more and step up more with the kids because John does everything for those kids. That was a statement that she had made to someone at the bar that night. Anyways, all right, so moving on. So this argument about whatever they had that morning, whatever he fed Kaylee that morning, or she fed Kaylee that morning. I know he got angry about like Dunkin' Donuts giving her iced coffees and things like that. He didn't want the kids spoiled. She comes from a more upper class family. She may be used to having nicer things and being able to get to spoil those kids. Maybe, I don't think getting a nice coffee is spoiling, but maybe that was John's idea of spoiling and he didn't like it, whatever. And that was an argument that they had. I don't know if that's what they were arguing about in the morning, but there was an argument, I believe, in the morning about the kids. And it wasn't like a drawn out, drag out kind of fight. It was just like a disagreement. But if you say that to EMT or an officer of the law after your boyfriend is found unconscious, they take that as, oh, you've got motive then to take him out of this world, apparently, even though you're the one doing all the CPR and running around the earth trying to find him. All right. So if they did have this argument, it could have been in the morning. He doesn't know. It doesn't know if it was, that moment in the car. He doesn't know. If they did even have an argument, it could have been via text message that day. Like later when they were at work, he sent a text message like, hey, did everything, did you drop Kaylee off okay at school? And she's like, yeah, I got him on an iced coffee. And then it turns into I can't believe you did that type of thing. I don't know. That was really loud. My dog just threw the bone on the floor. Sorry. I'm just speculating. I don't know what that conversation was or what the argument was, but I'm saying like it could have just been like a little tiff and you tell law enforcement and they're like, oh, that's motive. You obviously, even though John was the one that had the issue with the spoiling, so I don't know why Karen would just like freak out and end his life over that. But anyways, I digress. So that is Jason Becker. February 14th, that's what he told Proctor, that she did consume alcohol. She admitted to it. And you know what? I don't know why I put that under the Proctor thing. Just that he admitted during testifying that Karen Reed didn't specify in what manner they had argued via text, in person, and voicemail. So when that came out, it was like, okay, it's not necessarily a smoking gun again. All right, so what did Karen really say? We've got all sorts of variations. He's dead, he's effing dead. If my husband dies, I don't want to live anymore. This is my fault, this is my fault. Is he alive? Is he dead? That's my boyfriend. I'm not going to read them all, but you know how it goes. So there's a lot of different variations, a lot of things that were maybe, statements that evolved and changed along the way. So I'm going to break this down. We had 10 first responders that arrived on the scene when Karen Reed was present. 2 were Canton PD and 8 were fire department EMTs, paramedics. So the 2 Canton Fire Department were Saraf and Meany, who neither of them said, I hit him. Neither one of them said that. Then we have 7 EMTs who have changed their statements over time. The only one who did not change his statement over time explicitly says, I hit him, or no, I'm sorry, explicitly says he's dead, he's effing dead. That was what the one EMT who did not change his statement said over time. So the first 2 responders' statements did not change. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, he's the only EMT who didn't change, sorry. But Officer Mullaney's testimony never changed either. So Officer Mullaney always said, is he dead? That's my boyfriend. That's what he attributed Karen of saying. And the EMT Matthew Kelly always said, he's dead, he's effing dead. And they've been steadfast in their testimony, their statements, everything. In this case, they've been consistently saying those things. Officer Saraf's testimony has changed 3 times, on the other hand. So in his report, he said, is he dead? Is he dead? To Proctor, he says, is he dead? Same thing repeatedly. So that one didn't change. But in the grand jury testimony, he says, she, this is my fault, kept asking if he was going to die. So you see how it changed right there. Next, in this trial, he says, this is my fault, I did this. So things evolve and progress over time. 10 out of 10 first responders all described Karen Reed's demeanor to be one of these kinds of descriptions, or in the same vein of these descriptions. Very upset, running around, screaming. She was erratic, hysterical, emotional, and grieving. Again, folks, why are we here for this trial? I don't get it. I don't know why this trial is still taking place. But it is the exact opposite. Karen Reed's behavior was the exact opposite of Jen McCabe's, who was calm and just spent the time, chatting it up with law enforcement, or maybe just controlling the narrative to law enforcement, perhaps. So, what did she really say? I broke all these down, as you can see, into 3 categories. We've got the is he dead repeatedly. Other variations of that, is he dead? That's my boyfriend. He's dead. He's effing dead. Or is he alive? 7 first responders said that Karen said something along those lines. Only 3 first responders said, I hit him. And we know Katie McClaflin did, Nuttall and Flamati are the 3 outliers. Another variation of this was, I hit him, oh my God, I hit him. That was Flamati said that versus the other 2, which was straight up, I hit him. And then we have Saraf's, who's changed like 3 times here, and he changed it to, this is my fault, I did this. So I put it in its own separate category because, like I said, it's not necessarily an admission. It could be, this is my fault, I didn't come pick him up. This is my fault, I knew we shouldn't have come here. This is my fault, I didn't want to go out tonight, and I let him talk me into it. Whatever it may be. All the justifiable things that we say in our head to be like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. All those things that you run through, and then you think it's your fault because human beings do that. We internalize and take blame when it doesn't necessarily mean that it is our fault. So those are the categories that I thought made the most sense based on what was testified to. So really, if you break it down, she might have said all 3 things. She might have said them all. But in the grand scheme of things, we know she was screaming more about, is he dead, wanting to know if he was alive. Because that's her boyfriend, and she's terrified in the moment, and she's panicking, wondering what the status of his medical condition is. I hit him. Maybe she said it, Maybe she didn't, but we know that there's only 3 people who said it now. And when we break it all down. And then the whole this is my fault, like I said, I put it in its own category because it doesn't really say one way or another, blame or whatnot. But I do think, I think breaking it down like this and putting each person's face to what they said or what they testified to, I thought it was really helpful for me. I know there's a lot of visual people out there. Breaking it down into these categories, let me know if these categories are right or if you would have done it a different way. Do you think that this is accurate? Do you think that she said all 3 things? Do you think she just said a couple variations of some things? It's really up to the jury to decide what they believe. We know that Katie McClaflin didn't come off very credible, but we also know that the jury didn't see the behind the scenes when Alan Jackson? When Mr. Jackson tried to get the exhibits in of the pictures of her, Caitlin Albert and Katie McClaflin. They have multiple pictures of the 2 of them together. They wanted to get them in on evidence, and of course the prosecution objected, so they were doing a proffer to see if the pictures could come in. She denied to her core that she was friends with Caitlin Albert at any point in time in her life, and it really backfired, I think, in her face. I do think that the jury, even though they didn't see the proffer, I do think they saw how non-credible she is as a witness. I think it's not over because the internet has flooded the attorneys and social media with pictures of the 2 of them together, and more recent pictures. And they just keep coming. So the hits just keep coming for the Commonwealth. So sorry guys, but you're going to lose. That's just the way it is. I feel like Karen Read has the stronger case here. She's got the evidence on her side. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for being here. Take care. Bye now. If you've been impacted by a true crime, your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.